Hello, Ahmad.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
So it looks like we are complete. So welcome. Delivery Group Weekly, 24th of April, 2023, EMEA, America time zone. We have some announcements on expenses and all the experimental features that have been added. And next Monday is going to be in a lot of places public holiday. And we can start with a discussion topic. I think we can immediately move to the point B, since Jenny doesn't feel very well. So I guess this is gonna end up to the next one. Skarbek, stage is yours.
I don't want the stage. So for those that are playing release manager roles at this moment in time, you know that we're blocked because of the 16.0 package and Omnibus having deprecations that are preventing Auditable from doing its job. This should not be an issue because we've got a procedure in our monthly release task that says look for deprecations and, you know, let's get ahead of the game. I fired up an issue to figure out what we should do about this, but I think we've just been looking at the wrong thing. So I have a mild proposal in the issue that I created that kind of adjusts what we look for inside of the deprecations file. Whether that's enough, I don't know. So I'm looking for feedback from others. Steve, thank you for taking a gainer because I do think that is a decent approach. I am curious as to, for your question for bullet point 1 in our agenda, I'm curious about what you mean by the 2 links that you're looking for. I'm not sure what that's responding to.
Yeah, so in the task that's in the release task issue, so open one up here and I can get. So the task that says, you know, check for any deprecations to see if we are possibly affected in our K8s or chef config. So there's the deprecations link, which links to the file that has all of the deprecations listed, but then we just link to the K8s and chef directories. Are we supposed to be checking for anything in those directories, or is it essentially saying that if the deprecations affect those directories, then we care?
Okay, yeah, I didn't scroll all the way to the right. That's actually a really long line in our file. Okay. So yes, the configuration deprecations tell us what's being deprecated. Those other 2 links point to where we configure those options. So Chef Repo for all of our Omnibus installations, the K8s workloads would be where we configure items related to our Helm chart. That's just where we maintain those configurations, and that's where those changes would be prompted.
Okay.
So based on the comment that you've created, I think we just need to probably do a minor update to either maybe 2 places. One is inside of here that points to a runbook that describes what we should do, and create a runbook to better describe and more better describe what we should be doing to fix the situation, which is probably creating an issue for the appropriate team. We could certainly handle some of this. You know, there's a bunch of SREs on this team that we could tackle some of this, and realistically, we should have tackled what is blocking us today 2 months ago. So this is a little unfortunate that we ran into this, but if anyone has any other ideas, I might get started working on this exact process today. I feel like this should be something that's quite easy to work on, but
so I've been
open
running
to
through
other
this.
suggestions.
I've been running through this for the past, I think, 2 or 3 measure releases. And I've always been a strong advocate of pushing ownership to development team in this, because it makes no sense to have us trying to understand what will breaks in months from when they change it. What I would like to see here is more about I remember when I was in development having no clues of where configurations for GitLab lives. And this is really bad, right? Because when there was issues, there was an incident or anything that I had to figure out what is the configuration of the GitLab that we're running on gitlab.com to figure out to understand if the incident was related or not, has always been a pain. So I'd rather spend time in making sure those information are easier to figure out for everyone in development. So what's the configuration, and expand on the breaking on the, I suspect there would be workflow somewhere that explains how developers generate the deprecation message. And we should build on top of that and say, go there, figure out if we are using this configuration ourselves, and reach out to delivery, SRE, whoever, and make a plan to test your changes while it's in deprecation. So that we have months of time to figure things out and make things working, as well as educating everyone in the process, because we don't get caught by surprise by things changing. And they start, we and they, in this case is we and they. We are all the same company, but just to make fun. And they start to figure out proactively where the configuration lives and how, and understand how we run the system.
I enjoy that aspect. So I would like to do two things, I guess. One is to continue forward with our issue and try to figure out what we could do in the meantime, because this is going to be an issue because what you're proposing is some sort of process change. That's going to take a little bit of time.
For 17.0, basically.
Effectively. So let's continue with the issue that I created so far and see what we could do in the meantime. And then in parallel, I'll try to figure out what we could do to spin up a issue to kind of like modify procedures to cover that exact aspect, because I appreciate that. And I think that should be a way, there should be a way to accomplish just pushing that towards engineering then after the fact of building packages. So that all makes sense to me.
And that part as well about preparing for 17.0 is something Sam can help us with. So I know he's working on that, so we can combine our knowledge and kind of like, here's what we can see, or here's the tool we could use. And then he can help us actually like surface that and get other teams to be able to prioritize.
All right, cool. I'll handle that in some way, shape, or form.
Awesome. Thanks, Kabak. One other piece I wanted to just mention on this is perhaps the other pressing piece on our side that we can take an action for is I think our release templates will always have things that are a little bit ambiguous or perhaps out of date, just because of time evolving. And we write stuff usually when a situation's happened, so we have context, and then 6 months, 12 months later, that context doesn't always exist, or the tool has changed or anything like that. So I would say on this one, if we have steps like that, where it's check this thing or make sure this thing has happened and it's not really clear what you're meant to be looking for or why that's on there, please ask. Best case, we can eliminate a step, or maybe it's one of these where actually it's not super clear unless you know specifically what you actually are looking for, and we can maybe catch something early.
Anything else on this?
I guess, and maybe this is for a separate conversation, but because so I've never looked at this file before, and is this specific to infrastructure? Because we kept talking about pushing things to development, and this all has to do, from what I can see here, it's not stuff that development will be working on. They have a separate deprecation process for features that I'm aware of, that it doesn't include this type of file.
Well, this is just general configuration for GitLab itself. So if engineering is desiring to change the way we need to configure our services, then someone needs to reconfigure.com in some way, shape, or form to account for that desired configuration. So like Alessio is suggesting, if an engineer wants to reconfigure the configuration file for Gitly, we need to know about that. It would be wise if the development team kind of assisted with us in that realm and maybe reached out to us ahead of time, especially if something got merged in that enabled backward compatibility from the start. That way that change could be tested ahead of time, assuming omnibus and our Helm chart was updated, obviously, and then that change is then tested, it works in .com, and that's like another data point to encourage that the change that was proposed is acceptable and working as desired. Because hypothetically, since we use auto deploy as a method of testing everything, if we're not testing the new configuration, we're kind of missing one of the data points we need to validate that things are working as desired. We know the old method works, but we don't know for sure that the new method that was proposed is working.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it's pretty specific to like the teams that would have services configurations that they're managing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else, I think we can move on to point B.
Vladimir, you want to vocalize?
Yes, point B is mine. So I start looking at the deployment metrics and the whole epic about visualizing the things that we need. Hopefully we have more metrics now, but I wanted to point something about our visualizations. So I think that despite the fact that we discussed this, and we discussed that we're gonna have like a one dashboard per deployment where shows everything about deployment, and we're gonna have like a dashboard for jobs, and then like a overall dashboard that shows deployment SLAs, and we need to repurpose this deployment SLA. I see that we start building like multiple dashboards per different piece of this information. So I thinking that we need to kind of combine different pieces of info in one single dashboard and show and build the dashboard as we discussed before, with drill downs and all the things. And also I see that we have in multiple places we have a combination of aggregated data and the data per version. So even if we have a version select box on some dashboards, we still, you know, like showing the aggregations over multiple versions. So I don't think it's the kind of optimal way to do the things, because like if you have a select box of the version, you just need you just show in the data about that particular version, not about like any other versions and aggregation over other versions. That's one thing. And another thing is that we need to use more visualizations, because some of the dashboards, they are just tables with numbers, and also use more color coding, because color coding is kind of, that's what drives your attention. And also I want to point that dashboards should also have should be accessible, because those dashboards are not only for us but also for other people, and using like pale colors, maybe it's not very friendly for the people with who is color blinded. So, and having like gray numbers on black dashboard is also not super friendly for the colorblind people. Yeah, I think like we need to think on overall design, whatever, overall design strategy for the dashboards, I think. And I coming back to this topic of visualizations now, and I will try to combine everything that we have now in one single dashboards about deployments, but in the same time I will try to come up with kind of design guidance for the dashboards, and they need to kind of, each dashboard should answer the questions that you are looking for. And yeah, like currently information is a bit sparse over multiple dashboards, and it's hard to digest it, I would say.
One question, Vladimir, about this. Maybe let's see what actually fits in the current scope of the current OKR and what we can work in that later, right? So let's be sure that maybe we can show values, even if the dashboard is not the best design one, but they have like the right value that we can show to the timings and the various parts and so on. I know there were some technical difficulties without the latest pipeline name to do the drill down. Is something was discussed last week with Ahmad and Ruben. But before doing like extra improvements, let's finish this iteration with what we have and to not enlarge the scope now in the last few days of the quarter.
Sure, absolutely. I don't want to enlarge the scope. I just want to take what we have and combine in one piece, basically.
Okay. If there is nothing more about
just
this,
just a comment on that one is I'm not knowing much about where system are up to on these things. I'm not sure if you're wanting us to contribute or that, but I think if there are issues that, you know, there are questions about, do you want people to wade in on the layout or interpretation of things, then feel free to ping the issues out so we can actually do that. Otherwise, I go trust that you will have it under control.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't have an issue for this one. I plan to open one soon, but I wanted to also chat with you about this. So on the 20th, which I think it was last Thursday, we started the preparations for 1511, the release candidate. When we tagged RC42, we encountered a bunch of failures on dep. And turns out that these failures were present since at least 2 weeks ago. We fixed most of them. I think we encountered 4 different failures and 3 were fixed, but 1 was missing. And then since it was late already in my afternoon, already EMEA evening, we were supposed to tag on the next day. I took the executive decision of just ignore this failure. I did it because it was only on CE. These failures were not present on security nor on canonical. They seem to be sporadically flaky. But yeah, so my question is here, I have a bunch of questions about this. It is basically, how can we detect these failures earlier during the release cycle and not when we tag the release candidate? And what should we do when they fail? I tried to analyze the root of these failures and try to ping some teams about it to ask them, hey, this failure is legit, what should we do about it? But since it was late in my afternoon and most of the teams were located in EMEA, that wasn't a good resource. And then I was also not clear who should be the DRI of these failures, if should be engineering productivity, if it is on us, or basically what should we do, because we don't really have a run book for that.
What were the failures? I'm sorry, I'm just catching up. Were they all spec failures?
Yes, they were all, yeah, sorry about that. They were all spec failures on the GitLab project.
Okay.
They
awesome.
were not quality failures, so to
Okay,
speak.
cool. So I have a call actually that touches on this a bit later with Vinci, and she has mentioned that one thing that's tricky is we tend to ping quality on these spec failures, and actually quality don't write the specs or even review the specs, so they actually don't know, they maybe know less than us. She's suggested the dev on call escalation process may be the way to go. But I think to kind of summarize where we're up to right now is we basically need to figure out a process so that we can actually, that's to answer your C3, which is like basically, what do we do? Maybe scrolling out of that gives us a way to detect earlier. But yeah, go ahead, Lasse.
I was going to say that this is an environment diversity problem where you have something that works on 2 out of 3 environments and it failed on the 3rd one, which is really hard to figure out because it very likely will be unreproducible on developer machines, and asking developers on call to fix this, where, I mean, we've seen the result of developers on call for regular incident and things that were even reproducible in general. I'm not expecting to find, I mean, it will really
that's
mean
where the process is though, Alessio. Like, I don't think we should just say right now, ping dev on call and it will be resolved. But I think we basically need to figure out a process for who is going to be best able to debug.
Yeah, but this will not solve Myra's problem because she was late on a time-bound process. So that maybe we should talk about how do we surface them earlier, because she mentioned that it was failing since 3 days, right?
Yeah,
and this is probably this is something about the environment diversity I was mentioning before, right? So we are treating Canonical as the reference environment for master broken and all this type of all hands on deck reaction activity. So if master is broken on Canonical, is very well surfaced, everyone, I mean, there is a clear path to get out of this, right? But no one take a look at what is happening on dev. Security, I think we are monitoring now, I'm not sure. So that's the thing, right? So we rely on the last chain of the mirroring, but no one else is taking care of those because they don't need it. And so that's the problem, right? So either we move all the monitoring to the last stage. So we do the master broken is always on dev, for example. So because it's the last one, and then we need something to make sure that we are not lagging behind, that the things are working and they are actually green as well on top, because we tag based on the status on Canonical or dev, depending on where we are in the state. But then we rely on the pipeline on dev, or we can even say we don't care about the spec on devs. But this could be an option. We could just say never run spec on dev, just run the pipeline for building, because we already run them on Canonical and security. So why wasting time and resources of rerunning the same test again on the 3rd instance?
Don't we need to test dev CE instances because dev is running on CE?
We can run them nightly. I mean, it doesn't have to be on the critical path.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to run the pipeline, and we run the pipeline for running. Every package is built on a pipeline on dev, right? So if the thing is CI working, there are a lot of projects there that are just proving that CI is working. I don't think anyone is just doing checking that the result of the pipeline on EE, Canonical EE, is the same result of the pipeline on dev CE, right? So no one is checking. So this is not a real test.
So we definitely need a process, right? I think we're in agreement. We need to make a bunch of changes. Do we have all the information we need to be able to take the experience you had last week, Myra, and actually build a process from that? Or should we do like a retro thing first and pull in thoughts from other people?
I think a retro would be ideal, the ideal first step, because I don't really have a clear process in my head
Of
right
what
now.
happened. Okay, it doesn't have to be to plan a process, like we can certainly figure out, but let's try and understand exactly what happened. And then maybe pull in the thoughts Alessio just shared, plus any others around, like what might we need for this to be a process? Like what are the different critical points or times we need to test something? And then from there, we can build out a new process.
Okay.
Cool. Do you want to go ahead and get a retro issue open, Myra, just with like summarize your like what happened, like the timeline, and
for
then
sure.
we can figure out next steps.
For sure.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other topic we want to discuss? No, in that case, release managers, I guess, goes to Vladimir and Myra. You're muted, Vladimir, in the case you are speaking.
Yeah, sorry, I just very yes, so last week was, in terms of incidents, it was worse than the week before, I'm afraid. But anyway, we managed to promote few packages, and some of them were not promoted, like 8 of the packages we tagged 10 or 11, and then 8 of them were not. We just missed them or skipped. And yes, the first thing, like we managed to successfully roll out 15.11 version. So that's a kind of major milestone, at least for me. Their deployment frequency was more or less the same as before. I think here, somewhere here is our release, I guess, maybe. But in the average, we had like 5-6 deployments a day. Then what else? Yeah, here is the release. I think 21st. No, so it doesn't look like.
Are you talking about our
very...
monthlies?
Yeah,
That's not
it
going
won't
to show
be
up on
shown
these
here,
posts.
right?
No,
It's not shown here. Okay,
this is strictly auto deploy.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, their deployment kind of lead time is about 18 hours. On the spike, this was on Monday, I guess, and then afterwards was less than that. And deployment blockers, as I said, we had pretty intense week in terms of incidents. So we had 14 incidents in total, and it blocked like 38 hours in total. What else I need to show?
Just on those blockers, Vladimir. Yeah, especially given we had so many and such a lot of time blocked, would you be able to add the blocker type label onto the details table under week 16 for each of the incidents?
You mean here? You mean, or
yeah, exactly, on that table. So one of the columns is blocker type. If you could put the root cause label for each of those delays,
okay,
that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So we can send
I
those to
didn't
the
do
right
that,
teams.
It was not in the initial document. Okay, I will add it. Yes, sure.
Great, thanks.
And then, yeah, that's it from my side.
Thank you, Vladimir. Anything else you want to bring up on the recording?
I just want to say well done. Vladimir, well done. First shift completed. Big milestone. So well done for going through there. And Myra as well done to you, because I know it was a tough milestone. So super work getting the release out on time on Saturday.
I definitely happy to go through this process, and I want to say huge thank to Myra and everyone who was involved. So that was a lot of new knowledge for me and a lot of new stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward for the next shift. So I hope next shift gonna go smoother than this one. So since I already know a little bit about this release management thingy, so yeah, like need to iterate and improve. Thank you.
It does get easier.
Thank you.